Okay, so I've put some automation in here now, so I'll go through and discuss everything that I've done. And one of the first little tweaks actually wasn't really automation, but little kind of if we look here, the kick drum. Okay, so it's not going to be effective there. Like these little dropouts here, the kick drum just kind of drops out. Which sounds great with those open hats, because obviously the choke on the open hats is not there, so the open hats kind of open up more in those little breakdown sections. And stuff like that, I didn't think we needed really kind of over elaborate drum fills, but just dropping the kick out little sections. Quite a nice way of introducing sections in a very subtle way, and I thought a track like this, the breakdowns and the little drum fills and spot fills, just want to be subtle. We don't want to go crazy with too many effects. So that was something that I'd done, and I've added in a sub here. So this is just an ESS24. You load in the default state of an ESS24. Don't load in any samples, and it's just a sine wave, a pure sine. I've tweaked the envelope, the attack and release. I've copied the sub notes over here, the bass notes, sorry, and obviously the bass changes throughout the track. So what we've got here on this sub is color coded the same way as the bass. So the intro, it's just following that bass, and it's just all one note. I've also changed the bass has got a variation on the velocity, because that's opening and closing the filter a little bit, but we didn't really want that on the sub, so I converted all the sub notes, they're all the same velocity. And then over here, the sub, I also took it down by 2 octaves, so it's like an A0 there. And this is one of the reasons why I work in the key of A minor, is because a sub note of A0 hits a really nice frequency. It's around 60 hertz, 50 hertz, which is really nice subby frequency for this kind of house music. So yeah, then the sub notes drop there to follow the bass, and then we get this full, that's the full hook basically. But what I've done is I've taken the sub notes out of the kick drums there, so all the notes that landed at the same time as the kick, I've muted them, so just freeing up a bit of space in that low frequency area. So and then we started doing some automation. So we're talking about the delay freeze on this vocal, and all I did was converted the vocal to latch mode, opened up timeless, and just started recording in all the automation live. As you can see here, all of this stuff's live. So I'll play this, open up timeless, and you can see what it's doing. Go back to read. See, the freeze went on there, this section. And you hear that vocal is frozen, the delay is frozen, and then I start filtering it. Freeze goes off here when the beat kicks in. And I do a similar thing over here. Rather than copy and paste that automation, I actually just recorded it again, and it did it slightly differently in this section, which gave a nice variation. So the delay freeze on that vocal just continues throughout this whole breakdown section. It's filtering right up the way to this 169 bars. And just constantly filtering it, just giving it that nice bit of movement. So it's constantly moving around. So that just continues on. I duplicated the brass pads, so So we're in that intro section, and then we have the same thing. Just this sustained chord sitting underneath everything. Very low velocity, so the filter's right down. And it's just providing a nice sort of sound bed, really. Don't think there's any automation on here. And then we get to look at the ARPs now. So this is all about the filter. So recorded in some filter automation here on this intro ARP. So it's filtering out there. And then the ARP filters back down, the ARP changes hook. Provides a nice contrast in this breakdown section. Filters up again, and then when the beat kicks in here on bar 49, it filters back down. Follows the bass. There's filter automation on the bass as well. And then they go deep when the beat kicks back in, and then we get that full bass hook vibe. And then the ARP just starts filtering out again here. Really opens up. And then it filters back down again. And then here we have this nice bass automation leading into the breakdown. It's cut off frequency. And then here, this ARP, the third ARP, I've got this filter automation on this. So say we play from over here. There's no automation on this ARP, I don't think. This starts off all deep, this ARP, and then it starts to open up. So if you play over here, kind of filling out that high frequency, and this bass filters again. And then this third ARP kind of filters back down again, just a little bit more subtle, just taking it back down, and then it starts to filter out again. Have that little kick drops out there, and then the ARP changes, and it's just leading out of that section into the outro, where we get the outro bass hook, and then the bass starts to filter out again. And also I knocked out the sub notes where the kick drops out. The sub notes drop out as well. I just thought that breather in the sub frequencies would work quite nicely, you know, sort of like taking the sub out and bringing it back in, just gives it quite a nice impact. And I think that's all the automation on there. There was no automation on the drums or anything like that. The brass doesn't automate, but because there's variations in the velocities, that actually provides variation in all of the because we've got a velocity sensitive filter envelope, so get variations in that filter according to velocities on the brass. I thought that's quite enough movement for it, really. So I think one thing to do now before we start getting stuck into the mix down is maybe just make a few effect sounds, just quite simple noise effects, really, just for a couple of these sections, just to add a bit more extra impact with them. So we'll look at that in the next video. Alright, cheers.